shifted a bit this year. We no longer have nurses in your school, unfortunately. So we now are kind of broken down into just two school board liaison positions. So myself supporting the English boards, and then my colleague supports the French boards. But all of our kind of health promotion on and resources have shifted online, which I'll kind of walk you guys through in the presentation. So thanks for having me here today to talk about substance use health. So we'll be going over some trends and different resources. I have some resources up here that you can take, but they're also available online for you to print and post up in your school. So before we get started, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. So Ottawa is built on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. The people of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this place. I'd like to honor the people and land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation, as well as all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, their elders, their ancestors, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I also wanted to let you know that your well-being is important. Substance use health can bring up kind of tough feelings as we talk about it, so if you ever feel like you need to step out, please feel free to do so. So we kind of have a lengthy agenda for our half an hour that we have together, so I may be flying through some of these items, but I will be sharing the PowerPoint so you can kind of peruse the links and the resources at your leisure when I share the presentation with John. Facts and stats, we'll start with that first. You may have heard of OSDIS, the Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey. It's conducted every 2 years and it's led by CAMH. So it produces a provincial report that kind of highlights the mental health and substance use health landscape in Ontario. In Ottawa, we oversample to kind of obtain more robust data that's local to Ottawa, which is helpful to inform our resources and planning. So the most current stats that we have are from the 2021 survey. There was a survey done in 2023, but those results aren't available yet. They'll be coming out in the spring, maybe early summer. So this was a one-page infographic that OPH had developed to kind of highlight the findings from the 2021 OSDIS, and I'll go over them. It's available online as well. The most commonly used drugs among students in grades 7 to 12. Any guesses? Top one? Close. So when we break it down to the grade 7 and 12 cohorts, the top one is actually caffeine, so energy drinks, coffee, things like that. And then that's at 33%. Alcohol is your second at 32%, so there's like a 1% difference there. And then cannabis at 17%. When we remove the grade 7 and 8 cohorts, if we just do the 9 to 12, the top 3 drugs kind of shift. So then for 9 to 12, alcohol is number 1. And then cannabis number 2 at 21%, vaping at 12%, and then tobacco cigarettes at 4%. I think that's what people were kind of expecting. There were significantly more, this was surprising to me, more female students that were into vaping than male students. It was 12% versus 7%. I don't know if you see that in your schools, but that surprised me. And among those who vaped in the past year, when the survey asked about the past year drug use, 84% of them were vaping nicotine. So then we went into issues with dependence and things. And then the last stat that I'll share that surprised me, because it's been different than other years, is that grade 7 and 8 students are using opioids at the same level or same rate as grades 9 to 12. So in the past, the younger kids, the grades 7 and 8, weren't doing opioids, whereas in 2021 year, they were at the same level at 10%. So we'll go into kind of opioids and overdose and naloxone. Okay. So kind of in line with data and stats, we wanted to make the data more accessible to those who need it. So when people are applying for funding or different things like that, it's important for them to be able to have the data to back up what they're seeking funding for. So this is why Ottawa Public Health and our community partners work together to put together this dashboard. The dashboard aims to answer all of these questions here about, are people well, are people free of stigma, can people access treatment? It is a pretty complex tool to use, but if you are ever looking for data that's local to Ottawa, this is where you would find it, is on our dashboard. There is a user guide available on the web that kind of walks you through the data, but I'll show you another website that just pulls out the substance use data, so you don't have to go through this complex tool of all the other questions there. So this is the website I was talking about. So Stop Overdose Ottawa has a wealth of resources, so content for parents, youth, young adults, professionals like yourselves. And right on their main webpage, they have this summary of the weekly overdose data. So it categorizes the weekly overdose emergency department visits and the weekly overdose deaths. In January, there were 22 suspected overdose deaths, which is kind of on par with previous years. But if you've been watching the news, like you've seen articles about how there's more toxic drugs coming into our unregulated drug supply. So we may see the numbers shift just with that wave of drugs coming in. If I'm ever going too fast, because I'm kind of feeling pressed for time, just wave or if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. Okay, so before we get into substances, I'd like to just talk a little bit about stigma, because you guys are in a unique position to help us prevent stigma in our communities, because you have access to these students, and it's about like the way we speak, using person-first language and all of that. So stigma, as we know, is a negative stereotype about people. People can experience stigma for all sorts of things, gender, race, illnesses they may have, and unfortunately stigma is still the #1 preventer of people seeking the care that they need. And not even seeking care, even telling the people that they're really close to that they're struggling with substance use. And we know that the sooner people seek help, the better their outcome would be. So, as mentioned, there are many evidence-based strategies that we can all participate in, such as using person-first language. So instead of describing somebody as an alcoholic, we would describe them as a person who's living with alcohol use disorder. Just making that slight shift, correcting any myths and rumors that might be out there about substance use would really help us to prevent stigma. We do have a course online, and I'll summarize the different courses that are available at the end of the presentation. But it's a 20-minute presentation on stigma that you can take, and then be able to kind of share that information with our classes. This is my last piece on stigma. So OPH worked with CAPSA. I don't know if you know, CAPSA is a community organization that supports people who are experiencing substance use health disorders. And we developed this spectrum of substance use. Basically, it's a tool to kind of get the conversation going that we all belong on this spectrum somewhere. So even if there's no use down here, it's still part of the spectrum. It's, again, to prevent stigma, to kind of, for all of us to see that we're all on there somewhere. Beneficial use would be like pain medication or medications that people have to take in order to be healthy. Health, the key point to drive home here is that health and wellness are achievable throughout the spectrum, and that people are not just isolated by themselves if they're using substance or if they're not. We're all on the spectrum somewhere. But those are just kind of more details about what's addiction and the different behaviors that people could have dependence on, but I won't go through that as much. Any questions so far? Okay, so moving into the meat of the presentation are commonly used substances. So as you may know, substances are broken into different categories. So we have stimulants, depressants, and hallucinogens. So the stimulants are the things that people may refer to as uppers. It kind of it makes the central nervous system go into overdrive. So our central nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord, which is why when people are on uppers, it can kind of make them feel more excited, their heart rate might be going up, and they may be experiencing more energy, focus, or rush or euphoria. And those are different examples of stimulants. Somebody was asking earlier about are kids into cocaine and MDMA, like the kind of harder drugs, but from the AUSDIS survey, it shows that they're not into those harder drugs as much. It'll be interesting to see what 2023 brings, just because those were the pandemic years. So maybe I can share that with John, and those results are available.
For sure.
Downers are the things that slows down the central nervous system, so people may feel more relaxed, sleepy. So those examples would be alcohol, benzodiazepines, and opioids, which we'll get into. And then we have our hallucinogens that change the way people see, smell, taste, or feel. They may even see things that aren't there, so known as hallucinations. And those examples would be LSD, magic mushrooms, ketamine, and cannabis. A common question that we have is, are shrooms legal, because we've been seeing all those stores pop up. They're still illegal, so I'm not sure how that works with those stores being open, but still illegal. We have a couple of drugs here that are highlighted in red, just because those were the 4 that we said were the most commonly used ones for grades 7 to 12, and then I'll be going into some of them in more detail. Okay, so this slide, I'm going to take the advantage here and walk you through our online platform while kind of talking about some facts about these different substances. So when I do share the presentation, you'll notice that there's a couple of links in here. The pictures will link to content online that talks more about alcohol and all of that, whereas the words will link you to our School Health Online platform, which is where we're directing all school staff to visit. Oh my gosh, please don't judge my million windows that are open. I think we all like do a lot more now. So I know we're going to talk about drugs, but I do have to pitch this a little bit. So School Health Online. This is our new platform. So instead of having a nurse come in and do the presentation, you're now able to access all the presentations through this platform. This video here is just a little intro to walk you through what the webpage offers. This I'd like to highlight because we want more subscribers. So instead of bugging, because I work directly with the school board, right, so the associate director level, instead of bugging them to send stuff to schools every time we need something sent, we're trying to get teachers to register or subscribe to this email newsletter thing, so that anytime there's an update to the platform, we just send it to you by email instead of relying on Brett to send to you to schools. So please sign up if you're interested. And then this brings us to the curriculum support and resources. So you'll notice that everything's broken down by grade level, and then if you click into each grade level, these are the headings from the health curriculum. So hopefully it kind of resonates and makes sense to you. We were talking about alcohol. So alcohol is in the grade 5 curriculum under substance use health. Where to go? And so when you click on that, it'll bring you to the PowerPoint. I know there are issues with accessing PowerPoint with your Google Chrome laptops, I guess. John helped us find that out during our teacher partnership.
Yeah.
So we are trying to switch over our PowerPoint to Google Slides, but we're running into security issues on our end. So our workaround for that is having everything in a PDF. So you'll see the PowerPoint. If you can't open it, you'll be able to click into the PDF with the slides. And then the facilitator guide is what will go through the speaker's notes and then the kind of background information. And for every presentation or resource that we have here, we also list out the curriculum expectations that it covers if you choose to deliver that presentation. So you'll be able to kind of check off, like, I've done that piece of the curriculum. Okay, my fast facts about alcohol is that alcohol poisoning is a thing. Alcohol overdose can happen. I remember when I used to do this presentation to grade 5 students in class, they were surprised that it was a thing. And then they bring up, their family has parties and people just sleep it off. So, so we do highlight that we don't, if they're in a party situation and they know someone has been drinking and they become asleep, we do have to check on them, kind of do the shake and shout thing. If they're not responsive, they could be in something called alcohol poisoning, alcohol overdose, and it's important to call 911. Oh, and then the gag reflex. So during alcohol overdose, the gag reflex that we all typically have doesn't work anymore. So the person could be trying to get rid of alcohol from the system by vomiting, but without the gag reflex, you can't vomit. So then it gets stuck and people can choke and pass. That's my fast fact about alcohol. Going back to my presentation. Cannabis. Same kind of thing. Cannabis is in the grade 6 curriculum. So under substance, you'll see that there's the cannabis presentation and then the curriculum expectations that it covers. So for cannabis, my facts for that is that the risk for harm is more likely for those under 25. So our brains keep developing until we're around 25 years of age. And there's been research that shows that using cannabis while the brain is developing can actually change the structures in the brain. So that's a pretty scary fact, and that students kind of are shocked by. So it can permanently damage the brain if we're doing things to the brain while it's still developing. And then the other thing that I always share is that the effects of edible cannabis takes longer to feel. So when someone smokes cannabis, it kind of hits right away, like within a couple of minutes. But for people who eat cannabis, it can take up to 2 hours to feel the effects. And there's often times where people are like, I don't feel anything, and then they take more, and then they feel really unwell after. So just a difference there, the 2 hours versus the couple of minutes. Okay, I think that's enough of the web page. I think the last thing I'll say here, and I won't come back to this for my presentation, is that there's also additional online resources. So instead of having them broken into lesson plans, there's other things here that will link. Like so for injury prevention, it links to other web pages that have more info. So if you just need some like content to pull into like a lesson plan on your own, it's also there on our web page.
Celia, can I just jump in and say that 9 to 12 has a lot of that information as well. So we're all high school teachers here, so don't be afraid to jump in and look for all those. You don't have to go to grade 5, grade 6. So
yeah. So for high school, I'm in the 9 to 12. There's opioids, there's vaping. There's that one page graphic I was telling you about. Thanks, John.
Yep.
John knows our webpage well because we had a partnership where we had teachers kind of review the webpage to make sure that it was useful for them and resonates with their teaching. So yeah, thanks for your help, John. Okay, vaping. Again, links to the presentation. The thing to know here is that most vaping products contain nicotine and it's not regulated. So sometimes you just don't even really know. We do have posters available. I've got some of them, but there's other ones. And they're available in multi-languages. So if there's any language barriers at the school, these are helpful to have posted around the school. I went to a Healthy Schools conference in November, and there was a panel of people that came to speak about vaping. And some of them were from Ridgemont High School. So I don't know if anybody is here from Ridgemont, but shout out to your students, because they did a great job at talking about their concerns with vaping and the different things that people could do, or health units and schools could do to prevent vaping. And one of the suggestions was to have posters to remind kids that it's not just harmless water vapor. So it might be good to have these posted. Okay, opioids. So we did mention that opioids can be laced into anything, right? So somebody might think they're taking one specific drug, but then it actually ends up being laced with opioids. That's why it's really important to have naloxone, which I will go into. The opioids that we tend to hear about are fentanyl. So fentanyl is about 50 to 100 times more toxic than morphine. And it's often mixed with other drugs. And sometimes when people take opioids, they could be drinking or smoking cannabis, and just that mixing of drugs puts them at an extra risk of overdose. Carfentanil is the other thing that people may hear about. It's used by veterinarians on large animals. So it's actually 10,000 times more toxic than morphine. So even a tiny amount of that can cause someone to go into overdose. The last thing I'll mention, it's not an opioid, but it's in the same category as an opioid. It's a depressant. Benzodiazepines. So the Ativan, Xanax, Valium. Those seem to be used by youth. And the important thing to know about that is that naloxone has no effect on benzodiazepines. So if students know that their friends have taken Valium or Ativan or things and have overdosed, the naloxone won't work. But when in doubt, we give naloxone anyways, which we'll talk about. I know that's a lot of info about drugs. Really quickly, any questions? So OPH has a Party Safer course that is aimed at students, but also school intermediaries. It's a 1-hour course that goes over my little chart, like all the drugs, not just the ones in red, but all of them. And then at the end of the course, you get a certificate of completion. We do encourage that people take the course yearly because trends, drugs, things change. And I'll be linking that at the end of the presentation. But that might be a good one to take if you're interested in learning more details than just my fast facts that I threw at you. Okay, we got 10 minutes. On the nod, I want to talk about this just because it's a term sometimes kids use. And people often ask, is on the nod the same as overdose? So no, it's not. On the nod is when somebody has taken a drug and they're feeling the effects of it. So they're at risk of overdose, but they're not in an active overdose, so we don't need to give them naloxone. These are some of the signs and symptoms. So their muscles become relaxed, speech is slow, sleepiness, their head might be nodding, which is where the term comes from. The difference is that they do respond to shake and shake. So if you talk to them, they may be responsive, whereas somebody in an overdose situation, they would not be responsive. When in doubt though, call 911. And if somebody is experiencing these symptoms, it's kind of important to stay with them just to monitor, because they could enter overdose at any point. Okay, overdose. So people can overdose on a variety of things, right? Not just opioids, but people can overdose on Tylenol, alcohol. These are the signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose. So an overdose occurs when a person uses a toxic amount of drugs or a combination of drugs that the body can't handle. So then their basic life functions, such as breathing, things like that, could be affected. I won't go through the signs and symptoms, but if for some reason you find somebody in an overdose situation or a suspected overdose, even when in doubt, call 911. Try not to leave the person. If you do have to have the person to get naloxone or get help, it's important to be able to put them in the recovery position so that if they do wake up and are choking, they can kind of have their vomit just slide out of the mouth because of that gag reflex problem. I'm trying to see what to highlight without going into too much detail. Okay, so just that opioid overdoses can happen. It's important to have naloxone. I know schools might have naloxone kits, but it might be only a few select people that know where the kits are. So our suggestion is to stick a poster up to where the naloxone kits might be in the office, just so that in those emergency situations, everyone knows where it is. Some schools lock it up, but during emergency situations, those few seconds, few minutes that you're fumbling or trying to find a key can save someone's life. So best not to lock it up. And we were chatting before everyone came in, there's no harm to giving naloxone if someone doesn't need it, or like, you know, if kids are messing around and just doing it for fun, it won't cause them any harm. So better to have it stored in a place that everyone knows and is accessible. So we do have a new course called Overdose Prevention that goes over naloxone in more detail. So this wouldn't be considered as naloxone training because I'm doing it in like 2 minutes, but I will highlight some key points of naloxone, but I do encourage everyone to go take our course, which is linked at the end. So the key is to keep naloxone accessible, check it every once in a while for expiry dates because you may have to get a new one. So how naloxone works is basically it temporarily reverses the overdose. So when opioids enter our body, they attach to certain receptors in the brain and then gives that feeling of the opioid. When naloxone enters the body, it kicks the opioid off of those receptors and replaces it with the naloxone, and that's why people can come out of the overdose because the opioids are still circulating in their body, but not attached to the receptor. But this is also why it's important, even if we give naloxone and the person comes out of their overdose and they feel better, at any point, once the naloxone wears off, the opioid can reattach to the receptor and they can experience overdose again. So even if they're feeling better, we give naloxone, it's still important to call 911 and have them seek medical attention, even if they do feel better. So it does not eliminate the opioid itself from the body, and as mentioned, it doesn't have any effect on benzodiazepines like Ativan, Valium, or Xanax. It won't cause any harm if we gave it to they weren't in an overdose, I don't know, they were unconscious because they got knocked out from something else, it won't cause them any harm if we give them the naloxone. So even if somebody is breastfeeding, pregnant, even if they have liver disease, heart disease, all those conditions, we still give naloxone. The only time we don't give it is if we know someone's allergic, but in emergency situations, we typically don't know what people are allergic to, so when in doubt, we still give it. So naloxone starts working within 2 to 3 minutes, and it can last up to 2 hours, but as mentioned, depending on how many opioids are in the body, it might not last the 2 hours. If you go ahead and you spray a spray into someone's nose, after 3 minutes, there's still no effect, they're still not waking up, then you would go ahead and give the second dose in the other nose, and obviously you would call 911. It's important to stay with the person until 911 arrives, just because they might feel better once naloxone works, and then once naloxone wears off, they could go back into overdose. The link here is how to administer naloxone. We used to have different versions of naloxone, one that you have to drop from like a little ampule, but those don't, they shouldn't be working anymore. They should all be expired. So they should all just be the nasal one. Pretty easy to use. Stick it in the nose, and you just put a press on the plunger there. So this is just a summary slide of what to do when there's a suspected overdose. So we check on their symptoms, we do the shake and shout. If someone's in an overdose, they wouldn't be responsive. First thing we do is call 911 if they're responsive, and then we go ahead and give them naloxone. So one spray into the nostril, ignore the piece about inject one vial or ampoule into the leg. And then if you are trained, then we do the chest compressions and rescue breathing. If you're not trained, that's okay too, just the naloxone should be helpful. And then after 2 to 3 minutes, if it's not working, you go back and give more doses. So we do have, I didn't bring any because I didn't see any in our resource room, I think we're out, but we do have this printout on our webpage if you want to print it out and stick it up in the school. Okay, we've reached the end, so I'm just going to talk about our resources now. So I refer to some of these courses in the presentation. So the Party Safe reports, that's for the youth and young adults with this certificate. Stigma, that was for you guys, intermediaries, and then overdose prevention and response, that's the new one. So that covers the drugs and naloxone. And then we have a course on vaping that's coming soon. I don't know if you're aware, but when students are caught vaping in a school, sometimes the tobacco enforcement officer will make them do a project instead of giving them a hefty fine. If it's like a first-time offense, if they're younger. But the project, anyways. Yeah, so we're shifting gears. Thank you for understanding. We're shifting gears and we're going to try out this new course thing. It's a 60-minute course that the kids have to go through, and that will be coming soon. We'll see if it works, but yeah, we're always looking at improvement. So this is different community resources that are available. I won't go through them, but One Call, One Click is really good. It brings up like a self-assessment about what you're looking for. So you, like a family member and a student could do it together about the different services that they need, and then links them up to somebody in Ottawa that would provide that service. So that's a really good one. And then Rita Wood, I think Rita Wood is still in OCDSB schools, right? These are just some other resources with School Health Online. That's the platform we were talking about. You guys can read that. And then I just wanted to highlight some of the other posters that are available. We didn't have them, so I couldn't bring them. But this is a good one. Can vaping and nicotine alter brain development? And is vaping just harmless vapor? I just find them good visuals to remind students. And this is just a summary of all the resources available for mental health and substance use health. Okay. I apologize if I spoke super fast. I can take questions if there are any.
That course you just spoke about, that's going to be available soon. Are schools able to, so if kids do get caught, but they don't, there's no buddy who comes in to actually warrant them a fine. Can schools use that as a tool for those kids as an educational piece?
Yeah.
And we just access that on your site?
Yeah, so it's not available yet, and I think they were talking about like March, April, so it might be a little while, but totally. That's something that they could do. And I think, I don't want to misspeak about your policy, but I think there's like progressive kind of discipline actions within your school board. So like the first time might not be a fine, it might just be a sit down with the student, a reminder and all of that. But that could be thrown in as one of the things.
I think it really depends on the administration.
Yeah, we were having that chat. The administration. Happens, everybody approaches things a little bit differently. The other resource I didn't talk about here was just our Party Safer tips. Not sure about your board and kind of the harm reduction approach, but just like a summary sheet of how to party safer instead of, thou shalt not party.
Did you have the naloxone course or certification as a link there? Was that one of the
Yep. So the overdose prevention and
prevention and
response.
response? That's okay.
It'll bring you to another website called OLearn, and there is a little bit of an extra step where you have to sign up and the login and all of that, but then it tracks all the courses. Especially for Party Safer, if you do it yearly, it's kind of tracked there. I don't know if you can throw that in a professional development thing with leadership, but
Yeah. Would that be off base to have students potentially do that course, or is it more really for?
No, because it's so we said intermediaries just because that's the language for schools, but it's for business owners and like business staff. So I was mentioning like LCBO staff we saw were registered to take that course. So I think I haven't seen the course myself. I wonder if the language might be a little too high for students, but you could try it. Maybe something to do together as a class.
Any other questions? Awesome. Celia, thanks so much for your time and information. And that link will be emailed to you hopefully by the end of the day, that whole presentation there. And you got 10 minutes till Pat's looking forward to seeing you in the gym. We'd love it if you showed her up early and stayed late. I'm gonna follow you guys on live stream today as well. Follow you guys.
I wouldn't know. Is it good?
We would try all of those.
Thank you very much.
She had just come back and then so I guess she took over from Carson. Carson's not on my Netflix, so she was kind of moving in there, but then
I know, that's what I'm saying. Could you imagine like a senior class? So you're saying the whole school? It's healthy. It's healthy.
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes from 20 minutes Silver Star. Yeah, I drove James to baseball. Oh yeah.
you're still gonna do the bus
Yeah.
Yeah. Still a ways to go, but it's hilarious. Oh yeah, I'd be like,
Yeah, you count more.
Things that I remember back when I was starting me off, but then
Oh yeah. My best friend and I had to fight hard 2 years ago. Okay, so you've got whatever. So it just worked out.
The doctor because of this. So that was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. She's done supply teaching. She's probably answered all those but they're offering over.
Yeah, it's all.
Oh my gosh. It's just healthcare course.
So we're offering our first time. So, and then
Good or bad.
She's not as clueless.
Well, I think that
You can hear.
Like, there's so many awesome programs that you can do, like live on the, put your little logo on the live stream and that score and
right?
We're gonna go this.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think she has a
Fly to Dublin, visit the hospital industry.
like I
You went from Canada to go to she's
I don't know how to say that.
They feel bad now.
it's another $7. So, like, we'll go have a burger for like 4 or 5 minutes. Scotland for like 2 a week. Never been to Scotland.
Oh, no.
We're meeting her name best friend. Like, she has a kid between us. Nights, something a little different. And then Jen, was like, bit of a baller. So we had a Shopify. Just like right place, right time.
So your course, we've been saying
Weeks like 3 times a week.
volleyball.
Right?
You know,
You better say
Next
like,
month's
but that's the
right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay, we'll go there too.
Oh.
Oh, I know, yeah. Then we gotta get out of town in a couple nights in the room. So, yeah. I'm trying to get like a W. We did the West 2 summers ago. Calgary, Seattle, Victoria. That went really well. I think it's like great. We were 3 under that. So, 2.5.
Oh, yeah.
Based on that,
Well, see, my two
So let's go to.
no,
captains or leaders are.
yeah, should be.
So, and you have two good
That's
summers,
it's
so.
also a like when
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm gonna change.
and it's something that she and we're getting love to do as well, but it would be like I'm glad you're using some of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I am.
Yeah, Margaret. So I'll let you.
Thank you.
Right, thanks very much.
So it's like, I'm not a rifle guy. I have kids going every single day, taking photos, video, and things. I need a course to do stuff with all that content.
Yeah.
So just let me fill it. And they're like, okay.
How many kids do you have? Or
Running
this
this,
for next year?
this is for next year, but the ones that I have running it right now,
Yeah.
it's probably like 30 kids. And he just fills shifts and stuff. And he's actually trying to do a business for himself. So he contacted minor self hockey association.
Yeah.
And so now he's got a monopoly on all the city arenas, like the ones that he wants to work. And he does all the timekeeping. So I'm gonna make basically a small like school company where we then approach organizations like GCBA and we say, we will provide all your K workers. So the kids, so they'll pay us a fee.
Yep.
Right? We
Yep.
provide the workers, they
Yep.
get their volunteer hours, money goes back to the school to buy the equipment and things they need. And then we'll sell on top of that as a perk, we'll do their analytics. After the tournament, they'll break it down. So we just hand you a here's your free course, and here's your, where am I going next? Go down, thanks,
Enjoy.
So.
They will call you out if it's too boring. You just won't participate. So I kind of was thinking like organically, I kind of am forced to, otherwise the class is
Morning, miss.
You were a parent at camp this summer. Yes.
What's the balcony?
Yeah.
Joni.
Sorry, Joni, can I get in the balcony? Do you have a key for them?
And so it means that
Some people use these for.
Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back.
I'll leave this one unlocked.
Cool.
Things like my mentor was Mark. Track people from North, track people for needs. The first couple years of teaching, she pulls me aside and she says, I think we need to spruce things up around here. I want you to develop a school sequence for soccer. Right? Okay. And I gave her exactly what she wanted. Because this is what we want. Well, grade 9, we're going to do dribbling and passing. And in grade 10, we're going to do shooting and throwing. We want students to be able to play, be active, not stand in line to go, learn to bounce pass the way I did. Hey, everyone, stand, let's go, bounce pass. We learn skills in ways that we never applied. That's an example of linear pedagogy. Linear pedagogy is teacher-centered, right? We say, here's a plan, you can only do things one way. We're going to build the skills. The first question they ask is, you want to have fun? You want competition? 15, 20 years later, this thing called TGFU came into our conscience, right? It was created in the 80s or the 1980s in Australia. It is not a theory of skill acquisition or a sense of pedagogy. It's a teaching model, right? It says, go out, you're going to do a sequence of activities, you're going to build, you're going to ask probing questions to make sure that they actually understand what they're doing. And my favorite question, why? Why are they doing it? But then researchers started thinking, okay, we got this model, and at the time it was just sort of floating out here in space. Is there a skill acquisition theory basis for this model? And they attached it to something called ecological dynamics. It's basically the total opposite of what I learned in school, which was schema theory. Some of you actually remember your skill acquisition course. Schema theory tells us that whenever we acquire a skill, we build a schema. Think of it as like coding for a robot that says, okay, I am going to do the front crawl. I have a pattern for my arms, I have a pattern for my legs, and I have a pattern for my flip turn, and I just execute them. And I can, over time, modify my schema. Ecological dynamics tells us that we acquire skills simply to interact with our environment, and that there's no one right way. Right? I mean, I gave the example of your ball. We're taught, I was taught, right, the one right way to throw a ball is to hold it in a certain way, to step with my opposite foot, to twist, and twist, and to release. But if anyone's ever watched Patrick Mahomes play football, I don't have to, he doesn't have to throw contralaterally, he can just choke skill path like this. Or, quite frankly, if you're playing darts, that's how you shoot. There's skill on the right way. They did a study, sorry, I give one more example. Hockey goaltending. They're taught the butterfly. Okay, crack, butterfly, 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 butterfly. No one ever teaches them what to do when the puck starts rolling up their chest. They have to figure out to tuck their shoulder for rebound control. We don't teach them. They figured out by interacting with their environment. They did a study on discus throwing. It's a very, if we think of traditional skill classification, it's a closed skill. It's always the same discus, it's always the same throwing circle, it's always the same thing. And yet when they do high-speed camera studies of an Olympic discus thrower, they never execute the throw exactly the same way. There's always some small variable. So why do we try to teach that? So once they made this connection, then they started building other models off of it. If you look at the slides in the last slide deck, you'll see I'm pointing you to one book by Richard Light called Game Sense, where he takes another Australians are amazing, an Australian model that's applied to coaching. There's a bunch of great skill built in here, and there are a whole bunch of other models that were developed in other countries where they actually invest in things like this because they care. And there's lots and lots of resources out there. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to, in the sake of time, because I don't think I got through half of what I wanted to get through last time, probably take 12 of you or so to be active. 3 things that I want you to get out of this. What are constraints? How do you manipulate them in order to maximize learning? Show you the teaching mechanics that I use to emphasize both skill and tactical learning, and a sequence of activities that are adaptable and increase complexity that are fun and active that can be applied to basically any term or game. So as I said, when I started thinking about this during COVID, I put theory to it, and I've actually we had basically the same blocking model of activities for 20 years, and now I've changed it. I think it made sense then, but it makes more sense now. It's really good for kids, and well, away we go. We can ask questions as we go. Okay. Are there any? If you do not want to be active today, and no, I'm not throwing any shade your way, move over here, please. Overall active. Okay, great. Because she was pretty.
No, that's why I want
Okay, fine. So there we go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. All right, you know what? To save them, I will not assign you. Please just, I need 6 roughly even teams. There will be 2 purple teams and 2 orange teams. Go. Okay, if we were to lose, let's go. Green, that one, orange and purple, split yourselves in half, please.
Likewise. Not exactly.
Half the purple's here and half the purple's there. Half the orange is here and half the orange is there. All right. No matter what territory game it is, I start you're restricted to the fourth green line, not fourth line. You're only instructed, keep the ball in your hand, you have the ball, pass it to a teammate, and that's it. Go. Breathe! Thank you for being amazing! You guys did exactly what my grade 9 was doing. I got a green group, got an orange group, got a purple group, and they were rotating around like this. Like they were on one of those rides at the fair. Okay. So next instruction, have to move, but try to mingle. It's not a school day. Go. Eyes here. Then go back to where you were, please. Jenna, who are you trying to pass to? Oh, okay. Can you please show the class how you pass to Chris? It's great. What did that pass look like, Jenna? It was high. Why? And there's people in the way. So when there's people in the way, you start throwing higher. Everybody got that? Awesome. What? Breathe! Now, I wouldn't usually stop this often, but again, you're getting super dense fruit. Chris, that was awesome. You just received the pass. What did you do before you received the pass? How did you call? Or was it like this? It was loud. You called for the ball. Did you do something with your hands? What does that mean? Oh, thank you. No, she's not playing. Just this simple intervention, a couple of questions, and all of a sudden, like when I do this with my class, as soon as I say go, what do they all do? They're talking. Just for those communication and stadium The simplest constraints that you can manipulate to make the pass easier or harder are the number of people, the ball, or whatever equipment you're using, and the space. This is way too easy. All right, everyone, move on to the volleyball. Now, in order to save time, I'm also going to change the task. Within your group, number yourselves off. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, within your team, 1 always passes to 2, you always passes to 3, you always passes to 4, you always passes to 1. Once you have your ball, each team takes 1/3 of the volleyball court, please. Greens take the third hand. And I need, okay, just for the sake of fun, you guys be active for like 30 seconds. Awesome. Yeah, I need one and one.
Brendan, you really lost. You scored them.
All right, one person on each team video, tuck it in their belt. That's awesome. It's great. Before we go to this activity, I'll point this out because unless you're a soccer person, you may not know this, and you can change lives by showing this. That's the ball. I have just received the ball. Pass the ball, please. Thank you. I just received the ball. Anyone notice what I did differently? Sorry? Thank you. Which foot did I use? When it came from my left, and my left foot when it came from my right. Are there any soccer people in the room? What did I just do for you? I received it on my. Well, yes. This is my back foot. Back foot is all furthest from where the pass is coming from. So the pass is coming from my right. My back foot is my left foot. When the ball is coming from my left, my back foot is my right foot. And the result is that when I receive it, the ball is always in front of me. And now I can do stuff. Because the problem arises, and you've all seen this before, is so if I've got a, that's good. Come on. If I've got a defender on me and I receive it on my front foot, I'm facing the wrong way. Or if I take it on my front foot, the ball is ready for the game. Yeah. One of the S's. Either of which work. So one simple trick you can show your students to make them better at soccer. Now, each group has a third court. You're playing keep away. Now, the group of three, if you can complete 3 passes without the ball going in, you get a point. The defender, if you can get control of the ball and touch it with your other foot, so just touch it with both feet, you get a point. Okay? If the ball moves out, it always goes to the attacking team because we are trying to have them be successful. Question? Like, just want to get rid of the ball. And you're laughing because you know it's true. As soon as you see this, right, and I don't need to stop the whole class. You guys go on and see, you know, it's scared, it's all and stuff. No. No, it's not there. Who are you trying to pass the ball? Right. Why? Or some of them actually admit, well, I really didn't want the ball. Okay. They admit the ball, but you look around, you see someone on your team who would be better off than that. Who? Go. Why? The way for the defender and we're just walking this other side. Right. So toss the ball back. Now, we're going to go by. You do that again. Christian, you don't start until Brandon has control of the ball. Why? Because this way, well, first of all, Christian knows the ball's coming here, he's going to try to block the pass. But this also gives you the second chance to practice this. Okay? Go. And we're live. Let's go. Okay, thank you. Yeah, don't kill it. So one simple 20-second intervention, and we have reinforced tactics, giving an opportunity to rehearse, an opportunity to practice, and so on. And we only need in this activity, we need to modify constraints. Coming back to what I said before. Say they're not having enough success. The defender's always taking the ball is always going out. What can I change? What do I modify? Say it again. Yeah, give them more space. Like if I give them more space, give them more time. They're coming to this outside the ball, and just as they're going around, it's like, I'm just going to pick up this cone, I'm just going to move over here, and this cone, over here, and all of a sudden, they've got more space. They've got more time, and they're now more successful, which builds confidence, builds skills, right? If I find it too easy, I just shrink it. If it's super too easy, I can add that. Right? So by changing, again, equipment, the three easiest equipment, space, and ratio of numbers. And also I can just change the rules. And you'll notice, considering I did this grade 9, I can only ever teach to and coach attacking. I say defending because if they can, no one can attack. Okay. Next step up in terms of difficulty, I will also change that. Okay. Okay, I only have 4. So let's go. We'll go with you guys. You guys can just watch for a minute. Swap your balls out for Gaelic ball. Getting too far out. All right, come on over so you can see. Three groups, now one ball. Orange. So the orange team, and again, you need to clarify this. Anyone can have 2 oranges. They're on your team. So what I've effectively created here is a 7-on-4. And we are still in a play and pass only. And say 5 passes for a point. If the ball hits the ground, it's a turnover. I don't want any 5. Point. Don't forget to use yours. Don't forget to use yours. Oh, stop. Stop. No ball slapping. Okay, so right away, we can see that identity is so for all the words. So I'll tell you what. Put on blue. Okay, just take it off. And take your yeah, there's another purple. Oh, actually, there at the back. There's purple blue there. Under the bench. So I can get purple blue. And now guys is level neutral. And now all of a sudden I've got 6 on 5. So now it's harder. Yeah, just by changing this. Play. 1. Stop. You're out. Ball. Face up. It's blue. Outside. Okay, there we go. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And there's 5. And stop. So again, by manipulating the numbers of neutral players, I changed the pattern. If I felt that it was like the defenders are in their face all the time, what rule change can I make? What can I allow the ball carrier to do? Take steps. Take 3 steps with the ball. Play. 1, 2. Oh yeah! Oh, hey, purple, play purple guy. Play ball. 1, 2. Okay. Thank you. As we're building towards a true game, the next thing we need to add is directionality, right? Their games are going away. So we're going to keep with the Gaelic ball, keep it like 2. We need you into, I just need 2 teams, so guys, doesn't matter. Yeah, come to the orange, hard that any orange is got. So we have blue against purple here, and orange against green over here. You just go to team. You guys join wherever you want.
We got 3 steps, coach.
Come on, I haven't given you the rules. We need to need some more purple. Purple. Hey, extra purples. I can use some oranges and greens if you want to grab a piece. They're under the bench. Now, in order to add directionality, orange is going this way, green is going this way. To score points, catch the ball in the end zone. Up on the ball. The wall. Hold on. 10 passes only. Ultimate rules, no steps, following strategy possession. Must complete at least 1 Now, hold on. When I'm with my class, here's what I do. I say, you guys watch. You're going to play for 30 seconds. Go. Green ball. Orange ball. Stop. Stop. Okay. No step. Orange ball. We play for 30 seconds. As they play for 30 seconds, they all of a sudden they have any questions? You got any questions? Awesome. Wonderful. Let's play. I think we have to hand this right here. Goalkeeper. You know what? I hate having goalkeepers in possession. Are the ones that don't want to move. No, they don't. So, all I do is this. There's your net. I put tape on it. It's a restricted side. If we're playing football, you gotta hit the face of the bench. The ball has to stay low. I always play with the batteries. Because kids that kick the ball off the wall are usually just right? Force them to play. And in order to prevent people from just shooting from anywhere, I'll pick one and say, okay, you have to be inside the basketball. If I'm outside, 2 balls is far apart. And I will generally never get more than grade 10 on the 66. But in grade 9, playing 3 sports. And I love sports. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, you're my team. You're going this way. Organize. Yeah. Organize yourselves into my soccer going out. They didn't figure this out. The first time I do it, I say, organize yourself, figure it out. And then you try this and like, and then when they inevitably go, is they figure out things when it's done, and then I'm just trying to, because there's always asking, there's always someone high, there's always someone low, just say, all you gotta do is just say, stand on left, stand on right. And if you need extra support, okay, last thing I want to show you in 3 minutes before we go back to more up. Because in terms of our social complexity, we've got advanced stuff, we've got deep stuff, when I gave it up, when I advanced that deep stuff, but then I got to get it. Right? I'm going to start with it in a minute. It's really hard. So we're going to show you actually, how we're going to set it up for success. So let's just do 3. So I have 1, 2, 3 green, 1, 2, 3 orange, and 1, 2, 3 purple. Grab a 4-ball stick, please. The rest of you just move off to the side. They're all different. Hey, each team stand at 1/3 of the volleyball court, please. Blue line. 1/3 each. 1/3 each. Blue line. Blue line. Now, this is an activity that I will use if I have a class that I think can handle it, typically more grade 10, before I get to directionality. It's a soccer activity, it's modified, it's soccer in the river. The objective, purple team, is to get the ball to the green team. Whereas on that side, you can get the ball to the purple team. Before you can do that, you need to complete 3 passes. Stay inside the blue line. So 1, 2, 3, pass to green. Orange, send 1 to 10. Okay? If they mess up, where do you think you're going? In the middle. You're coming out here, ball goes to the front. Okay? And play. 1, 2, ball's out, quick! Quick, ball to green! Ball to green! Let's go! 1, 2, 3, can we score? We cannot win. Ball on. 1, switch. as that ball came in, Alicia's like, whoop, yeah, no, you're not getting it. Which again is transferable to what do you do with this ball? How can you prevent the ball? Okay. Quickly, over to the board. Jay, don't leave with any equipment. Oh!
It actually
I didn't smack it. Nope.
It's nothing like that. Yeah, it's just mingling that will. I gotta go to meetings. I gotta take it.
Great, yeah. That's actually crazy because they weren't even there yet. Like the young ones. They were like, yeah. So the young
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
How's your day?
I know, I do love that. The old Maryland style. Oh, really? So, maybe, the word school is please stand. You're looking like a very
Why did you do that?
You gotta be harsh. That's not okay. It's a Ramsey type
You came here at 8:30 today. What? It's our day off. But that's the thing, so we have good ones and then great because they're separate. So those ones are actually very good. That was the default. Not bad, right? It's like, right? And they're rainbow. They're inclusive. They're inclusive. Oh, Until they see that, and I'm like, I'm so messed up by the line. Warm them up so that we don't break them. I don't want to pay money. You're in these, right? What is the one that you have? What's the cheaper version?
Okay, 4 balls.
What is it? Student X, okay. Okay, I might try it. I was gonna go sell her Halo since she did. Emily, yeah, Emily gave me that respect. But I don't really care. I just wanted to be a little bit different like that. Yeah, the Halo's way cheaper too. It's like $189. Yours is $130. But it's actually, you use practice in that. Oh my God. I'm not trying to go broke. I paid for freaking high performance enough money. No, I did not. No, I'm an elderly person. And she was on the list, and I was like, that was crazy to drive that car. You know where I was? Here in my car. I was putting it in the garage, and I love you. I was like, oh yeah, we went volleyball night.
Is this their class? That's you?
Yeah, well, it was at 17 when I put through. And then I was like, but I missed this with all good. Yeah.
But the triangles at the bottom are too wide, right?
The minute the forecast says snow call,
See, those are the 2 things I'm hoping.
you're lucky I'm here.
4 plates and the dividing wall lasted.
I'm afraid.
But we got the curtain.
That's
The curtain is, you can't hear it on either side of it. Like, it's,
But we miss the headache, like, because every few weeks, as happens in Colonel Bio, when there's too much snow, our wall would get stuck. So that would be, the curtain has its own set of, like, as Brendan said, if you're sharing the gym, it's hard to teach over each other because everything compares one side
So
to
you
the
know
other.
my
But
response? I had a company in one day and I got off. So it doesn't get stuck anymore.
Oh, yeah.
No, so what if a puck goes under?
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
trying to get Emily into yellow. I need to get that in green.
Yeah, balls are fun.
I know, we're not.
Winter, the weight of the snow.
Too athletic.
maybe that one spot on the far side.
Stripped. Just stripped.
All right, thanks, guys. Great seeing you. I'm not sticking around, but don't
Enjoy the comedy show. Tell the Angels.
I think all day. What's that? What's
Hey, not gonna lie, I've done it too.
I put my boots on every morning.
You don't have this thing. I don't have more information.
And I haven't noticed every month. Yes, right?